Thank you everyone for joining us here on another week of PALS TV. We had an absolute blast last week, bringing you the shows from all over the state, and we'll continue to bring you that wide variety of content again this week. It's important to us to make sure that we are touching a lot of different areas and just making sure that you have a lot to choose from, and there's something in there for everyone. So this week will be no different. We'll be doing the virtual tours again, playing some games, education, and then some physical activity and life skills. So our typical PAL stuff where, a lot of choices, a lot of options. Although we can't give it to you in our normal fashion, this for right now is the next best thing for us to be able to make sure that we are continuing to communicate with all of you and bring you what makes PALS so great, and just those amazing people that have all of these unique and fantastic skill sets. So it's Monday, May 4th. So for all of you Star Wars fans out there, may the 4th be with you. So if you're bored later on, watch some Star Wars films. I know you won't be bored for the next few hours. We're going to have a lot of fun here, and that's where we're going to start off today. Live from Steubenville, Ohio. We'll be doing our Explore and Recreation and Leisure with Amanda. We had a blast last week going through the Smithsonian, and I'm sure this week will be no different. I'm really looking forward to the Air Force Museum and everything that has to offer. So really excited to go through that tour. So live from Steubenville, it's Amanda.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning back in. So today we are going to be going to the National Museum of the United States Air Force. It's actually located in Dayton, Ohio. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys, and you can see what I see here in a second. Screen mode. Okay. You guys nice and big so I can see you too. And let's share the screen. All right, you guys should be able to see my screen now. Thumbs up if you can see my screen. Good deal. All right. So here we are, we're outside the museum. There's the front entrance. We'll hang out outside here for a few minutes. Flag way up there. Spin. Not a whole lot out here, but let's head on in. We are going to be exploring the early years right now. So this is the early years section of the exhibit. Over here, we have the Wright brothers. They're figuring out their plane. That's the 1909 military flyer with the Wright brothers. Just got some more early planes up here. They're pretty simple, huh? Got a bicycle wheel here to get moving. Little steering wheel to help you turn where you need to turn. Over here. Again, we got a more modern plane of the time. Oh, it's not gonna let me go up that high. Reverse. There you go. See up there, plane. Got an observation balloon there. Army buys new planes. So this says first shot fired from an airplane. Let's see if I can zoom in here. The first shot fired from an airplane occurred on August 20th, 1910 at Sheepshead Bay Racetrack near New York City, with Curtis piloting Lieutenant Jacob E. Fickle fired a rifle at a 3x5 target from an altitude of 100 feet. The next month, Fickle and Curtis repeated the experiment at Boston, this time using an Army semi-automatic pistol. So in the picture here, it says Lieutenant Fickle demonstrating how he fired the first shot from an airplane. The man at the controls for this historic photograph, Charles F. Willard, a Curtiss pilot. And there's the gun that was used to shoot the first shot by Lieutenant Fickle. Special recognition was given officially to Army flyers on February 23rd, 1912, when the War Department created the rating of military aviator. On May 27, 1913, authorization was issued for a special badge to be worn by military aviators. And during the latter part of that year, the first badges were made and awarded to 14 pilots to receive them. So there's the badge that they would get. On March 31st, 1911, Congress made its first appropriation for military aviation, $125,000 for the year 1912. The Signal Corps immediately ordered 5 new airplanes. The first of these, a Curtiss-type military D, was accepted at Fort Sam Houston on April 27, 1911, and became Signal Corps Airplane Number 2. Signal Corps Number 3, a Wright Type B, was also accepted on April 27th. So there are some of the first planes that the military purchased. Following acceptance of the 1909 flyer, aviation activities were moved to College Park, Maryland, where a larger flying field was available. And on October 8th, Wilbur Wright began giving flying lessons to Lieutenants Lamb and Frederick Humphreys. Humphreys soloed on October 26th, thus becoming the Army's first pilot. Lamb soloed several minutes later. Within several weeks, both Army's first pilots were ordered to return to duty with their respective Army units. The Aerodynamical Division thus was left with 1 airplane and a handful of airplane mechanics, but no pilots. So they had the planes, they didn't really have any pilots though at that time. Well, let's scoot over here. So we have a SPAD plane right here. And we have a Curtiss V23 engine. In 1916 and 1917, Curtiss produced R3 and R4 airplanes for the U.S. Army Signal Corps, some of which the 1st Aero Squadron used during the Mexican Punitive Expedition. The Curtiss V23 engine, rated at 200 horsepower, powered both those airplanes. However, it had poor power to weight ratio, almost 4 pounds for every 1 pound horsepower, which hurt aircraft performance. By comparison, the World War I Liberty engine had a ratio of 2 pounds weight per horsepower. There's one of the first engines that and they said it didn't work very well. And this is a Curtiss OX5 engine, which I'm going to assume was an upgrade from that, but unfortunately I cannot read that. I'm too far away and it won't let me get any closer. So those would have been the engines that went into this airplane here. Okay, we got a little video here. It's a short clip on World War II training. I'm going to see if it'll pull up. We're not going to watch all 8 minutes though. So there's a little bit. It just showed a little bit of the pilots and our first pilots to help fight France Western Front. A little bit of the more there. Spin around, see what we can see. Somehow I've gotten out of full screen. There we go. So right here it talks about, goodness gracious, Eugene Jacques Bullard, the first Black military aviator. There are all his medals he received. Unfortunately, I can't read too much about him. Let's see here. On August of 1917, Eugene Jacques Bullard, an American volunteer in the French Army, became the first Black male pilot in history and the only Black pilot in World War I. Eugene was born in Columbus, Georgia on October 9th, 1984. He moved to Buffalo, New York at the age of 11 to travel the world. And by 1913, he settled in France as a prize fighter. When World War I started, he enlisted in the French Foreign Legion and rose to the rank of corporal. For his bravery as an infantryman, he received the Croix de la Guerre and other decorations. During the Battle of Verdun in 1916, France suffered casualties and Bullard was seriously injured. While recuperating, he accepted an offer to join the French Air Force gunner observer. But when he reported to gunnery school, he obtained permission to become a pilot. After completing flight training, Bullard joined the 200 other Americans in the Lafayette Flying Corps. He flew combat missions August 27th until November 11th, 1917. He distinguished himself in aerial combat as he had on the ground and was often credited with shooting down one German aircraft. Unfortunately, Bullard enlisted pilot got into a disagreement with a French officer, which led to his removal from the French Air Force. He returned to his infantry regiment. He performed non-combative duties for the remainder of the war. So he was one of our first Black pilots. Okay, so now let's go to our next area. We've got some memorabilia here. We have a flight jacket and a helmet. The goggles. I don't know. No, it won't let me scroll in enough to read about it. But you can see there the boots. Lieutenant Quentin Roosevelt, youngest son of former President Theodore Roosevelt, was a pilot in the 95th Aero Squadron. On July 14, 1918, he was shot down behind German lines by Sergeant Thom, a German ace with 24 victories. Roosevelt's Newport 2-8 crashed to earth at Chamery near Congolus and Tardenos, and his body was buried by Germans at the crash site. Since the plane had crashed so near the front lines, the Germans had to use 2 pieces of basswood saplings bound together with wire from the Newport to fashion a cross for the grave. When the Germans retreated from the area, U.S. troops found the grave and made a wooden cross for it. Still later, Frenchmen constructed an elaborate marker and fence. On July 12, 1944, Quentin's brother, Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., died of a heart attack in Normandy following the WW2 D-Day invasion of France. When the American Memorial was established at St. Lawrence, Samir, after the war at Omaha Beach, Theodore's remains were buried in the cemetery. Quentin's remains were then exhumed and buried at St. Lawrence beside those of Theodore. So there is Lieutenant Quentin Roosevelt. There was the original grave. That was the new grave they made. So, and I believe over here, this is the original basswood cross. So if you see, it's just 2 sticks and some barbed wire. Over here, we've got a couple more planes. We have a Sopwith Camel F1 and a Newport 28. Daily Life in Jasta 19, Arthur Rand is standing on the left without a hat. This informal picture was likely taken in the summer of 1918, before Ron was wounded in action on July 17th. Around that time, Jasta 19 was based in various towns in northern France and southern Belgium. So we'll scoot in a little bit. You can see the guys, they're kind of relaxing, taking a moment. There are those planes. Hop over here. Got some more early years. Up here we have an observation blimp. That is definitely a big guy. Got our SPAD again. An airplane up here. Ooh, look at this plane. It's pretty cool. The Folk DVII. So I can't really read a whole lot about it, but it is definitely a very colorful plane. Zoom in on it. You can see the purples and the pinks and blues and yellows. Very pretty plane. Here we have another plane. See if I can zoom in a little bit and see what this one is. Standard J1, except it's had the fabric removed off its wings, so you can see all of the wood that the fabric would have been covering to help the plane fly. Pretty cool. This is a torpedo bug right here. Just a little tiny plane that I'm going to assume, as I can see wires and things of that nature here, that they controlled via remote control. We have a de Havilland DH4 right here. So interesting how different these planes look in comparison to the planes we see today. This is the Curtiss JM4D Jenny. Let's go over here, see what we can find out. There's some guys hanging out by one of the early planes. This is a Caproni CA-36. Judging by the flags right here on the plane, where do you think this plane is from? Anybody have any ideas? Oops, my goodness. So that is the Italian flag, or the flag of Italy. So I'm going to safe assumption to say that is a plane that was in Italy. Okay, let's head on over here. Some trophies. Let's see what these are here. Wing from a Curtiss R8 racer. The metal surface is the radiator in which the engine's coolant was circulated. This type of radiator reduced air resistance and helped increase the aircraft's top speed about 15 miles. So that was a wing and a radiator right there. And this is a section of the wood veneer from the Verville R1, the Army Air Service's first racer, which won the 1920 Pulitzer Trophy race. This aircraft also competed in the 1920 Gordon Bennett and the 1922 Pulitzer races. Part of the number 42 from the 1922 race remains visible. Oh, right there. Okay, let's see what we got over here. Wing rib from the P-1A pursuit airplane in which Lieutenant Cyrus Bettis crashed and was injured near Lewistown, PA on August 23, 1926, less than a year after he won the 1925 Pulitzer Prize trophy. So there are the planes that were in the Pulitzer race. Okay, do another spin, see what we got here. So these are actually bombs, old bombs. So they would drop those. Those are sites to help them drop them and make sure they land at the right location. Cool. Over here we have a picture of some planes. There's our balloon over there as well. We got a propeller. We have a Kellett K2, K3 auto gyro. We have a Boeing P-12 right here. See if it'll tell me anything about the, let's see, we have the P-6E. Well, that says that's a P-12. See if we can find the piece. Oh, right here. So this, what I'm going to read is about this one right here. This is a P-6E. And unfortunately, it is not going to let me close enough to read anything about it. And there's a target glider. We have another engine. See this plane? See the boats on the bottom of it gave it the ability to land into the water. Here we have a Wright 790 engine and an early Ford Model T ambulance. You can see the cross on the front. All right, now we're getting into some memorabilia here. This is General Billy Mitchell and his Brigadier General, I'm sorry. And there are some of his uniforms. Let's see if we can zoom in. We have his awards and decorations. There are those. He was quite well set up. So let's find out a little bit about Brigadier General William Billy Mitchell. The son of a wealthy United States Senator from Wisconsin, Mitchell was born in Nice, France on December 29, 1879, while his parents were on vacation. He grew up in Milwaukee and attended Racine College and Columbia University, now the George Washington University in DC. Before graduation, however, he enlisted in the 1st Wisconsin Infantry in 1899 as a private to fight in the Spanish-American War. Because of his father's status, Mitchell quickly received a commission, but the war ended before he could get into the fight. Nevertheless, he stayed in the U.S. Army Signal Corps and served in Cuba and the Philippines during the Philippine Insurrection. Sent to Alaska in 1901, Mitchell distinguished himself by successfully laying a telegraph line through some of the most remote parts of that territory. While stationed in Alaska, Mitchell studied Otto Lichtenhall's glider experiments, and he wrote an article in 1906 predicting that wars would soon be fought in the air and under the sea. After attending the Army Staff College, Mitchell became the only Signal Corps officer on the Army General Staff in 1913. Since Army aviation was assigned to the Signal Corps, Mitchell had become familiar with the early military aviators. Made the Deputy Commander of Aviator Section 1916, he took private flying lessons at the age of 38. With the growing possibility of war, Mitchell went to France to study the production of military aircraft, and he arrived just after the United States declared war on Germany in April 1917. Mitchell met with many Allied air commanders, but Sir Hugh Trenchard, the Royal Air Force commander who advocated using independent air power as an offensive weapon, had the greatest impact. There's some pictures of him. Promoted to Brigadier General and put in command of all American aerial combat units in France, Mitchell put Trenchard's ideas into practice during the Battle of St. Mihiel in September 1918. Commanding 1,481 American and Allied airplanes, Mitchell won complete aerial superiority and devastated German ground forces. For his wartime efforts, Mitchell received the Distinguished Service Cross, the Distinguished Service Medal, and several foreign decorations. But his brash methods and unwillingness to work within the chain of command alienated his supervisors. After the armistice, Mitchell returned to the U.S. expecting to command the Army Air Service, but instead he became the Deputy Chief under Major General Charles Menno. Nevertheless, Mitchell steadfastly advocated the creation of an independent Air Force, and he promoted small Army Air Service with border patrols, forest fire patrols, aerial mapping missions, and any other activities demonstrating the value of aviation. When these efforts failed to bring about the changes he sought, Mitchell became increasingly vocal about his arguments and publicly attacked superiors in the Army, Navy, and even the White House. So Mr. Mitchell had an idea of an Air Force long before the Air Force was even a thought. Most of the pilots back in that, well, all of the pilots that back in that time were Army pilots. There was no Air Force yet. So let's keep going. Right, so we're gonna head over here. We have the P-26A right here. That is a very pretty plane. I like it a lot. The P-26 marked a significant step in the evolution of fighting aircraft. It became the U.S. Army Air Corps' first all-metal monoplane fighter in regular service. Affectionately nicknamed the P-shooter by its pilots, the plane could fly much faster in level flight than the Air Corps' older wood and fabric biplane fighters. The P-26A also had a higher landing speed, although not initially delivered with wing flaps. P-26As were later fitted with them to reduce landing speeds. Even with its all-metal design and all-metal construction, the P-shooter retained some traditional features such as an open cockpit, fixed landing gear, and external wing bracing. The P-26A became the last Air Corps fighter to have these obsolete characteristics. First of 3 prototype P-26s flew in March 1932. After purchasing these aircraft, the Air Corps delivered a total of 111 of the production version, the P-26A, and 25 of the later B and C models. Boeing delivered the first P-26As to the Air Corps in 1933. The P-26 remained in the Air Corps' front-line fighter until 1938, when the Curtiss P-36A and the Sovietsky P-35 began to replace it. So there is the Boeing P-26A. This is a cute little plane. Oh, there's some more of them. This is a Martin B-10. Some pretty kind of similar in the colors. Colors we saw earlier. See if we can zoom in on the B-10 a little bit. Yeah, we can a little. Okay, oh, plane down. This is a North American BT-14. A flight training mishap, it said, so somebody did a boo-boo somewhere. Crashed into the ground. Right here we have a North American O-47B. We can see the front of it. Right here we have a Hawker Hurricane MKLLA. You can see the guys that are right there looking at it. Here's a better picture. Let's see if we can zoom in. The Hurricane at the Battle of Britain. The Hurricane is probably best known for its performance during the Battle of Britain. When the Battle of Britain commenced in July 1940, the fighter command had but 527 Hurricanes and 321 Spitfires to counter the enemy's 2,700 aircraft. Yet the RAF was able to maintain air superiority in the skies over Great Britain. The Hurricane absorbed the brunt of the German air attacks until a faster, more manageable Spitfire was available to blunt the successes of the German pilots. So there you go. This, we have a little bit of memorabilia too. You see a pilot's jacket here. Let's take a spin. There's some better view of the North American O-47B. A big plane. You got lots of vision up here. You can see. Got the Eagle squadrons here. I don't know. Nope, it's not going to let me zoom in close enough to read it to you guys, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so let's keep going. So this is a small section. It's just they have a small Holocaust museum in there. Here we have a quilt. During World War I, many American doughboys traveled to the front in French rail cars, displaying the notice that each car could carry 40 men or 8 horses. Therefore, they quickly became known as the 40 and 8 rail cars. In World War II, 40 and 8s again transported supplies and troops to the front. They also carried new cargo. Millions of Holocaust victims were herded into similar rail cars on their way to concentration camps. Many Allied prisoners of war, POWs, rode to German POW camps in them, sometimes with as many as 90 men forced into each car. 40 and 8 rail cars carried 168 Allied POWs from Paris to the Buchenwald concentration camp in 1944. So this is, like I said, just a small glimpse. There's a jacket of a soldier who liberated the concentration camps. We have an accordion and some pictures, unfortunately, of people who were forced to live through that. All right, so we'll go into a little bit of it today. We don't have too much time. We have about 10 minutes left, but we're going to look at some of the World War II planes. There's a World War II plane. That's a Curtiss P-36A Hawk. See if we can find out a little bit about it. There it is. The P-36, developed from the Curtiss Hawk Model 75, originally designed for the French, was first used in the Air Corps in 1938. The Army Air Corps obtained a total of 243 of these planes, including 30 P-36G export models seized by the US government in 1942 because of the German occupation in Germany. Both France and England used the Hawk 75 in combat over Europe in 1939 and 1940, even though the airplane was obsolete when compared to its major adversary, the German Messerschmitt BT-109. So there's the P-36A and there's the Cervesky P-35. P-35, a forerunner of the Republic P-47, became the U.S. Army Air Corps' first production single-seat, all-metal pursuit plane with retractable landing gear and enclosed cockpit. The Air Corps accepted the 76 P-35A in 1937 and 38 and assigned the 75 to the 1st Pursuit Group at Selfridge Field, Michigan. The Japanese Navy ordered 20 of a 2-seat version of the P-35. In 1938, the only American-built planes used operationally by a Japanese squadron during World War II. Sweden also purchased 60 improved single-seat EP-106s. In 1940, the Air Corps took over a second Swedish order for an additional 60 EP-106s and designed these aircraft P-35As. Most P-35As flew with the 17th and 20th Pursuit Squadron in the Philippines. The aircraft on display served with the 94th Pursuit Squadron at Selfridge Field, acquired from Mr. Charles Doyle of Rosemont, Minnesota in 1974. It was restored by maintenance personnel of the 133rd Tactical Aircraft Airlift Wing, Minnesota Air National Guard, with assistance from students of the Minneapolis Vocational Institute. So there is plane right there. Here we have a Taylorcraft L2M. And there is some more of that plane, just another angle. And that is just about all the time we have for today. I really want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. Stop sharing, and I'm going to bring you guys back over to where I am so I can see you. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? Caitlin.
My grandpa was in World War II.
Wow, that's cool. My grandpa was too.
Wow.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Do you know what branch military he was in, Caitlin? No, not sure. My grandfather was in the Air Force, but he actually was in the Korean War, so a little bit after World War II. But that really started most of our aviation experience in these wars, and it's amazing to see how far we've come as far as those aircrafts, and you know where we are today with these jets flying over cities, and you know it's very impressive what we've been able to do as a military. But thank you for that, Amanda. Another incredible tour. Always enjoy learning new things, places we've never been. Most of us have never been before, so I think that's very valuable for us to get those experiences and really be able to see the world, even though we're stuck in our houses right now. So another great tour from Steubenville, Ohio. Love our explore and travel and leisure segment. We will be joining Amanda again tomorrow for another tour of our Air Force Museum. So now we'll be taking a short break till the top of the hour, coming back live from Gallia County and doing some more education and learning about ceramics with Rankin again. So come back and join us here in about 15 minutes or so. See everyone soon. Thanks again, Amanda.